This is Matt from UAV America. We're here today with Rocco's S800 Evo. We're going to run you through some of the features and how to get this thing, how to take it out of the box and get it up in the air safely. First thing we're going to cover is how to do the pre-flight. We're going to go over all the inspections. Then we're going to cover battery connection, gimbal setup, the flight modes on the radio, and then we're going to take a look at the charger. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take these foam prop guard things off and extend the props. It doesn't have to be critically straight. Centrifugal force will do the rest for you. So you just want to kind of get them close to where they need to be. There you go. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is take a look at all these arm connections. These should be perpendicular to the arm, and these lock the arm to the lower frame. So go ahead and take a look at all 6 of them. Make sure those are perpendicular and tight. Then we want to look at these levers here. These levers lock the arm to the center plate. And again, you want these facing out. So just go ahead and check all of them. Make sure they're all down and they're all the same height. Next we're going to want to raise the GPS mast. You raise this thing, snap it into place. That's all there is to that. And then you want to do a general visual inspection. Every time you fly, you want to just look for loose bolts, make sure none of the connectors are chafing. All this stuff is set up in such a way that that shouldn't happen. But just through day-to-day use and flying, things can shift and stuff may change. So it's good to just, every time you take it up, look at it, make sure there's no loose bolts. Give each motor a grab and make sure nothing's loose there. On these these propeller bolts, you can see there's a white paint mark on the bolt head and a white paint mark corresponds with it on the red part. Just make sure those are all still lined up so you can do a visual inspection on those. You don't have to put a wrench on these. The torque on these is sort of critical, so don't mess with these. All the other bolts on the whole frame, if you want to, you can go through it and snug everything down just to make sure there's no loose bolts. So once you do that, you want to come down to the bottom here and make sure the springs are attached firmly. Just make sure there's nothing obviously loose or falling off. It shouldn't be a problem, but like I said, there's a lot of vibrations, and this is an aircraft, so you have to maintain it like an aircraft. Okay, so now let me turn this around. Go through the battery connection. This is a removable battery plate. There's a tab right here you can depress, and then you just slide the whole thing rearwards. In order to reinstall it, you line these 2 slots up with these T-shaped pieces right here, and all you do is hook the front ones on first, get it all lined up, and then just slide it forward and it snaps into place, and that's all. And then the main battery cable connection is right here. It hangs down, and you plug that in. You can hear the electronic speed controllers emitting a tone through the motors to let you know that they're connected and everything's right. And then you see there's a red status light on the bottom. We'll go over the functions of that light in a minute here. So that's the flight battery pack, and we'll come over here and take a look at the gimbal. So in order to install the camera, first thing you're going to want to do is connect the cable and place the camera in the gimbal. There's a little bracket that goes over the front. Flip it over. These are 1.5 millimeter Allens on these. Alright, snug those up. This wire just kind of needs to hang out there. If you try and tie it up to anything, it's going to bind up in the gimbal. So the next thing is we're going to power up the gimbal. And after you power up the gimbal, it needs to stay still for about 3 seconds while the gyros calibrate. And once you get the flashing green light on the gimbal controller, you're all set to go. It's right up there. Now the gimbal is on and stabilizing. and then you just hit, you turn the GoPro on and record as you normally would. So we're going to give a quick rundown on the gimbal controller here. This is pan, that's the rudder, and then this is pitch. Pitch down, pitch up, and that's all. When you let it go, it'll return to center. Pitch down, pitch up, and then pan left, pan right. There is a provision for controlling roll. It's not set up. You can only have 2 axes being controlled. Roll will always be stabilized. Generally, you don't need to aim it and roll. So you want to, look at something down on the ground. You can do that, no problem. And the only other thing with the gimbal is occasionally, if it doesn't initialize with the yaw axis pointed straight, like you may turn it on and have it like that, you just got to move it manually to straight. That's all. So you just want to start with that in a straight position. Both the other axes will center themselves normally. Okay, so you've got your screen here. And here we've got our DJI data downlink here, and here's the video downlink. The data downlink you can either connect via USB to your laptop, or you can get the iPhone app or the iPad app and connect via Bluetooth. This is a Bluetooth adapter. Here we have the wiring harness for this. This is going to be the connector for the battery. Plug the battery in. And then this is a bullet power connector that goes into the red connector on the monitor. You can see the monitor is now on. And then this one is going to connect to the yellow on the monitor to provide a video from the multi-rotor. Okay, now it's on. We're getting video, and you can also see the horizon changing there on the screen. So now you're getting live video. Here's going to be your horizon. This is going to be your variometer, which is your rate of climb or descent. This is your battery level. This is your velocity over the ground, and your pitch and roll attitude. Let's see what else we have on. This is going to be your altitude over here in meters, and this is showing you that the failsafe is active right now, which I don't have the radio turned on, so the failsafe is active. Now we're going to run through the flight modes on the radio here. The blue switch is going to be your primary control switch for your flight modes. That's going to allow you to select between manual, attitude stabilization, and GPS stabilization. All the way down is going to be GPS, and you can see here on the screen GPS. The middle position is attitude stabilization, which will level the craft, but it will not position hold. GPS mode will hold it wherever you leave it. You can still fly it around using the sticks like you normally would. That's attitude. And this is manual mode. Manual mode is a mode you're not going to want to use. It doesn't provide any sort of self-leveling or stabilization. Manual mode is only there if on the very rare occasion that you have some sort of IMU failure, the inertial measurement unit on the multi-rotor fails. That mode can help you bring it down safely. It's essentially an unheard of failure mode, but it is a good safety thing to have on there. If you don't have any experience flying something that isn't self-leveling, you probably don't want to use that mode. This is the intelligent orientation control switch here. Down is off. Middle is course lock. It'll lock on to the current course that you're flying. And no matter how the nose of the craft is oriented, this will always bring it back to you, and this will go left relative to you, right relative to you, and away. The throttle still works the same way, and yaw control works the same way. That's for course lock. It'll stay locked to its current course. This is the IOC on, And again, no matter how, the middle mode will lock it onto the current course that it's on. The upper mode will lock it relative to your home point. So again, no matter how the nose of the multi-rotor is facing, this is left, this is right, forward and back. With this off, these are all relative to, imagine yourself sitting in the cockpit, and that's how these all work. When this is on, all these controls are going to be relative to where you're standing on the ground. Over here, the red switch, this is the go home switch. Away from you is off. If you get disoriented or you get lost or you just don't want to land it yourself, you flip that on, and the LED on the bottom will start flashing an orange pattern. It'll come back to you and it'll hover for 5 seconds over your home point, and then it'll descend and land and disarm itself all on its own. This is going to be the landing gear switch. Up towards you is up, away from you is down. The flight controller inhibits the operation of the landing gear below 5 meters, so you won't be able to raise or lower the gear with it on the ground. You'll have to remember to do that when you take off. You can, if you're not using the camera and you don't need the gear up, you can just leave it down. It doesn't affect the way the flying works. Last thing we're going to take a look at before the charger is the status LED on the bottom. You can see right now it's flashing purple and 3 red flashes. The 3 red flashes indicate that it only has about 5 satellites locked on. When you put this down outside, you're going to want to let it acquire all the satellites and lock on to where there's no red lights flashing. You'll just have a purple light, and the purple indicates that you're in GPS mode. This middle mode, again, this is attitude mode, and it's the yellowish greenish light, 2 fast flashes, and again it's still indicating with the 3 red blinks and that about the number of satellites that it has locked on. Manual mode only has 1 red flash, and then still it's flashing to let you know that it's searching for satellites. So that red flashing for searching for satellites is common through all the modes. Generally you're going to want to use the GPS mode for most flying. Unless you're indoors or in some other GPS denied area, like under heavy tree cover or in between buildings, then you can use the attitude mode. But generally, for most flying, you're going to want to use the GPS mode. Now let me unplug this. Now we're going to check out the charger that we're including with your setup. When you take the battery out of the box, this is what it's going to look like. We've already installed the XT60 connector on it. When these ship, there's a link that links the 2 halves of the battery pack together. So you're going to want to, and this is just for shipping safety, you want to take these guys and plug that in. I'll include a piece of shrink tube in the box. You're going to want to put a piece of shrink tube over this and shrink it with a heat gun or a lighter to make sure this doesn't come unplugged. Now, here we have our charger. So we're going to turn on the power supply for the charger. Alright, this is the front of the charger here. This button here changes channels. See, channel 2 is illuminated, channel 1 is illuminated. We're going to use channel 2 for right now. Channel 2 is on the right. We've got our stuff plugged in there. So you want to hit this battery type button. We'll get over to LiPo. Let's start. We're on LiPo charge. We want to be on LiPo balance charge. We're using a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. So we're going to want to charge this at 6 amps. And so we'll get the charger set up, and then we're going to plug this in here, the XT60. Plug that in there. And now on this board I've highlighted the green ones. These 2 green connectors are going to correspond with these 2 guys right here. So these are, the wires are kind of short, so you might have to fiddle around with this a little bit, but get that guy in there. Get in there. Now we're all set up here. We're going to hold down the start button. Checking. You've entered a 6 cell battery. It's detected a 6 cell battery, and then you hit confirm to start. This is the charge current. This is the voltage. This is the time, and this is how many milliamp hours have been put back into the battery. If you hit the plus button, you can look at the individual cell voltages. So these are all 6 cells that we're looking at the voltages here. And that's it. You let this thing run until you hear the beeping, and she's ready to go. If you need to stop it for any reason, just hit stop and it'll stop. Get this started again, and then if you're doing two batteries at once, you'll start this one. Once that's started, you hit the channel button and come back over to the other channel and do the same procedure over there. And while it's charging, if you want to switch between channels, this channel's still charging. You can take a look at it, check the cell voltage. You don't have to actually monitor any of this. The computer inside will determine the correct charge profile for this. So that's that. If you ever do need to take the top section off of the landing gear, the IMU is mounted on this anti-vibration platform here, and this is the cable for it here. It goes in and plugs in on the other side of the flight controller. So if you ever do need to take this out, you're going to have to wiggle this connector out of here and unplug it from the CAN 1 connector. There's CAN 1 and CAN 2. That one's connected to CAN 1. The reason for that is DJI recommends mounting the IMU on this plate, and it's isolated from the vibrations of the frame by these rubber dampers. It provides for much better flight characteristics, and it's more stable that way. The other thing, if you want to take the frame off, is this connector right here. This is for the video feed to the IOSD. You'll have to remove that connector. Underneath the bottom, you'll have to unplug this power connector here, right there, and then this connector here for the landing gear. The connector for the landing gear is hot glued, so you'll have to peel the glue off before you do it. That's sort of a safety thing. If the landing gear fails up, and you're not going to be able to land, so that's why that's glued. Otherwise, getting the top off is pretty straightforward. Once you disconnect the wires, you're going to have to loosen all these clamps, and then the main frame section will lift right off the bottom, and you can see those wires that are holding it together there. This is the landing gear connector. This is the power for the landing gear right there. And then the last one is the IMU wire right here. The IMU wire is pretty long, so if you do need to take this off for maintenance or other work, you can leave the IMU connected.
So we're actually going to ship this to Rocco with the arms attached, correct?
Yes, this is going to be fully assembled, but if you do need to take the arms off, you can just lift it straight up like I just showed. Lift it up, unlock the arm, and then it just bends down and comes right out the bottom. Just like that.